Serrated knives. Are they actually useful, or are they just a scam that knife companies use to get you to buy more knives? Well, we're going to try to answer that and more on today's episode of Knife AQ number 221 of the series where I answer all your questions, sharp or dull. Hey everyone, David C. Anderson here, coming at you from the KnifeCenter, and that is Thomas behind the camera as usual.
Sourdough.
Bread knives, is that the connection? What we do with this series is we answer your questions and we get them from the comments section below this video. So if you've got a question and you want it considered for a future episode, please drop it in the comments below. Let's get to our first question today. Justin Hayes asks, help me understand the value of serrated blades. I've had a couple, and when they get dull, they are difficult to sharpen. This can be true. My kitchen bread knife is used rarely, so when it does need to be sharpened, I just buy a new one. It's kind of like planned obsolescence there. If rather than maintain, you get rid of it and get a new one. That's could be construed as maybe a trick to buy a new knife, but let's dive into the real meat of the question here, which is, do you actually need a serrated knife? That's kind of the thrust of Justin's question here. And maybe could be the answer. Not necessarily.
Stop buying new knives, buy this other knife instead.
I don't actually take the position that you don't necessarily need a serrated knife. They certainly have their uses. A good, very sharp, plain-edged knife without serrations can do the job many times that you might normally reach for, a bread knife, for example. But there are things that a serrated knife does better. Let's look at this knife right here. Enough rambling. The Victorinox Swiss Modern. It's a 9-inch bread knife with the typical pointy style serrations right here. And those points are the key. They essentially help start the cut. Whereas on a plain edge knife, actually I only have a couple here on the table because we're talking about serrations today. Sometimes if that edge is really highly polished, it lacks a certain amount of grab in a way on certain things that might otherwise be advantageous. And you might have your edge struggle a little bit to get the cut started. And those serrations are going to dig in just a little bit and present all of these multiple sharpened edges in different geometries as you cut. That helps a lot with really soft skin stuff like tomatoes. Again, a plain edge knife can do it. But a lot of folks in the kitchen, home cooks who maybe have never sharpened their knives, chances are the serrated knife is going to be sharper than your main knife. So that's gonna give it double advantage right there. It also helps with really crusty breads that maybe are crusty on the outside, soft on the inside. To avoid crushing them with a less than optimally sharp knife, these serrations can also kind of cut through a little better, bite through a little better at first, and then give you that sawing motion. And really delicate breads too, that you don't want to crush, also has applications there. The other one we talk about a lot is rope. If you cut a lot of rope, especially like thick, heavy fibrous rope, that same thing, the plain edge, depending on how toothy it is or how toothy it is not, might not be able to grab the fibers real well. But the serrations can kind of hook in, grab those fibers, and cut through a lot more easily, which is why you'll see a lot of serrations on aquatic knives, like this Spyderco right here. This is the Salt 2 with an LC200 blade, which is virtually stain proof or virtually rust proof, and with a blunted tip. Another good thing to have on a boat. And you might think, hey, what if you just push cut through the rope? Yeah, that can be done with a highly refined edge, but what if the rope is unsupported? It's hanging, you need to cut through it. The serrations are gonna work a lot more quickly, and in a high stakes environment, such as certain marine events, that can be a life-saving difference maker right there. As for sharpening, there is an easy way, actually, to sharpen a serrated knife like this type of serrations. And that would be something like another Spyderco product, the Sharpmaker. It has these triangular rods, and you can essentially just drag this through the way you would a plain edge knife, holding it straight up and down and sharpening on the angled edge of the stones. Now that will, over time, kind of wear these points down, so it's less pointy, a little more wavy. That might not be a bad thing though, I'll get to that in a minute. The other thing to do if you want to be more painstaking with it, and you don't want to spend 95 bucks or so the Spyderco costs these days, the Lansky Blade Medic, and that is 2 words. Well, 3 if you count Lansky. It's Lansky Blade Medic. This is about 15 bucks, and it has a tapered diamond coated rod, so you can match up essentially the angle or the diameter you need for the serrations there and work it, and then you've got a apex on the ceramic stone here where you can get in and refine those edges. Yes, it's going to take a long time, and honestly, if this were my only option and I could buy a new bread knife here for $51, which is what this one goes for, I might do that too. But we have the Sharpmaker, so that's a good option in my opinion. Anyway, Justin, thanks for the question. Hope that helps. Next question. James Lyle asks, hey guys, I've noticed that there are many different variations of serrated edges. Or serrated blades. That being said, what is your favorite style / or company for serrated edges and why? Thanks. Well, we do have these standard serrations. Let me hold up the Spyderco. It might be a little more visible here. They're typically chisel ground from one side, so you can see the back. You don't see that actual ground bevel in there. And these, this is by far the most common in better cutlery out there. I'll get to the less better cutlery in a minute. And you can sharpen them, as mentioned, either with something like the Sharpmaker or more painstakingly keeping it, more intact. Actually, I'm skipping ahead a little bit on what I wanted to talk about, but sharpening this style of blade right here is a little more easily accomplished than with the Lansky with a product like this. Lansky makes these dog bone style sharpeners. This is the Spyder sharpener. It looks like the Sharpmaker's rods over there, but the edges or the corners are actually rounded, again, to more closely match the actual serrations on the blade. Yes, it's still going to take a little while, but there are options like that. So that's standard. We already talked about what those do well. And next, let's talk about the wavy serrations that might be created if you Sharpmaker sharpen this after a while. There are knives that come right out of the box with a more gentle serration right here. This is the Shun Classic Blonde bread knife, 9-inch blade. It's on sale right now for about $136, which is a little bit of a discount over the normal price of like $170. I like a wavy serration, and if I had to pick a favorite serration pattern, this might be it. Because it's a little bit gentler. You still get some of the same advantages of the point, but it's not quite as pronounced. But you get the extra pressure right there on this rounded tip to help start the cut. But they're far easier to sharpen without, quote unquote, ruining them. And these pull double duty better than a standard pointy serration at stuff like meat slicing, for example. I really like this for kitchen cutlery in particular. And the EDC stuff for like an everyday carry pocket knife, I don't know of any that have this style of serration, but if there were any and I needed a serrated pocket knife, that might be where I would go. That's an option. Another common one you'll see is the VEF serration, which is exclusive to CRKT. And it is, I'm trying to remember his first name. I think it's Jeff Veff, but that doesn't sound right. Hang on. The gentleman that came up with this style of serration, his first name is Tom Veff. Sorry about that, folks. It looks like a normal serration that has been sort of angled backwards, meaning the point itself is pointing backwards. That gives it a more aggressive hook to grab onto what you're cutting from a pull stroke like that. Sharpening this, your rod style sharpener is going to be the way to go. Cool things. Next up, we're starting to get into the micro serrations, but there is an intermediate step there, and that is the Cold Steel brand and their serration pattern, which is sort of a hybrid between a micro serration, you have some of it right here, and a more conventional serration right here. Sharpening this is fairly easy with the right equipment, actually. Lansky also makes a dog bone sharpener with grooves in it that fit the cold steel pattern. So that's kind of neat, but definitely a more specialized thing. This is the Spartan Copus blade, by the way, about 79 bucks for this knife right here, which is a lot of knife for 79 bucks. The tinier serrations here definitely rip more aggressively into some materials, but they slice less cleanly than any kind of gentler serration pattern. So keep that in mind. If you want cleaner cuts, plain edge is obviously the best way to go. Wavy serrations is the cleanest serration in terms of cleanliness of cuts, followed closely by the standard serration. These are going to be a little more rippy in general, and stuff might actually get caught up in that depending on what you are cutting. Micro serrations, like you have on this utility knife right here. This is a Zollingen made fruit and vegetable knife. This is like $3. And if the serrations on this ever go, I want to just throw it behind me, but that's fine. I don't consider these or any other kind of like super tiny micro serration. There are a few different types on the market. None of those are really sharpenable very well. You essentially have to grind through them or sharpen through them until you make a new plain edge on the knife that you may or may not have. Useful in more limited circumstances, I think, but useful nonetheless. Anyway, yeah, I'd go with the personal favorite. Since you asked, I like the wavy serrations. All right. Now we come to a segment called Damyr's Buried Treasure, where thanks to his questions several episodes ago, we're going through the alphabet for the second time now and checking out an item that has never been shown on the channel. We're on the letter M today, and the brand we're going to go with is Marbles, and this version of the Woodcraft knife. This is a classic pattern, well over 100 years old at this point. This just happens to be one of the more recent versions of it. It's priced at about 125 bucks for what you're getting here is pretty decent price. It's made in Argentina, and you've got a stag handle here. It's actually 2 pieces of stag encapsulating the tang, and then a third piece for the butt cap right here. Now, that means you don't get like the full natural curve of a natural piece of stag. It does, however, mean you get a more actual consistent handle shape from side to side, and you still get that nice bark on either. Brass crossguard, brass, and it looks like G10 spacers, although it might be something different to add a little bit of color. Crowned spine here on the section where your fingers might actually get up and use it, making it more comfortable, nice and gentle. And the blade here is all about slicing. This is a hunting knife through and through. And longtime viewers of this channel know that I like a Nessmuck blade. And while this is not strictly a Nessmuck blade, in later writings that George Washington Sears, aka Nessmuck, did, he was starting to gravitate towards this knife pattern over the traditional Nessmuck pattern as we think of it today. It's got some of the same vibes and same utility of a classic Nessmuck, so I like it. Comes with a leather sheath with some nice tooling on the front. It's kind of a thinner sheath overall. It's not the most super robust, I would say, but the knife itself is really, really cool. I don't actually have one. I haven't owned any Woodcrafts over the years because with my slightly larger than average hands, this design has always been a bit small in the hand for me. Tops makes a version, however, a fully modernized representation of this with a little bit more handle. And that is an official Woodcraft. It's not just a version or a spin-off that they have done. So if I were to buy one, it would be one of those. But that's the Marbles Woodcraft. It's a very, very cool knife, if I do say so myself. All right, now we come to the lightning round for today. And I'm just doing one question in the lightning round again this week. Logan Sackett says, "Hi, David. Thank you for making excellent content for us." My pleasure. Do you still recommend the Spyderco Triangle Sharpmaker? Or is there a better solution for a guy who obsesses over the edges of his knives? If you are a true edge obsessive, I would not recommend the Sharpmaker. I would, however, recommend the Sharpmaker to anyone who wants a sharp knife who may not be an edge obsessive. The hallmark of the Sharpmaker system is how easy it is to use, and it's incredibly easy. We've done a video, we'll leave a link to it, probably up here in the corner, where you can see, step by step, what it takes to use one of these. You don't have to be a knife nut or a knife enthusiast to get good results out of this. I've given these as gifts to friends, even as part of like wedding present packages where I've given a nice chef knife and a sharpener. You can get hair shaving sharp edges even if you're not a knife person with just a tiny bit of practice. I mean, a tiny bit of practice with this. However, it is limited. You've got fixed angles, 2 angles, because you can use the other side of the base right here for a different angle. But the angles are fixed. The availability of different grit rods is more limited. If you're truly obsessing over your edge and you want to be really granular over every detail and grit progression and all of that sort of thing, you got to go with a guided knife sharpener. Like freehand is great. If you're really good at that, go for it. But if you, like I said, if you're really obsessive, get something like this, for example. This is one of the Edge Pro models that allows you to very minutely fine tune the angle you are sharpening your blade. These guys, the KMEs, the WorkSharp Professional Precision Adjust Pro Elite, or whatever they're calling it these days, that's a really cool system, despite my poking fun at the name there. Wicked Edge, they all make great clamped systems like this that allow you to fine tune the angle. So for edge obsessives, go with something like that. I'm not going to tell you one over the other because they all have pros and cons, but they're all quite good. All right, now we come to our final question of the day, which is of course our most seriousest question of the day, which comes from Itskira. If a vampire were to carry a knife, what would it be? Certainly not silver. That'd be a pretty safe bet, I would say, yeah?
That brings knife safety to a whole new level.
I'm gonna go with this right here. The Ocaso Solstice with the harpoon point. The harpoon point because I like it, but this model in particular because it's refined, it's elegant, it's kind of distinguished. If you've seen any of like the branding and like the booths at trade shows that the Ocaso team sets up, it's very distinguished, very debonair in a way. I think that fits a vampire quite well. Because it's certainly, like, they don't need anything tactical, like this Spartan right here. They're pretty well equipped without, force multipliers, I would say. We'll go with that, the Ocaso Solstice.
Until Van Helsing shows up, and then they actually need something tactical.
Well, this is, that's just stretching the bounds of reality there, Thomas.
I'm just being most serious.
Thank you very much for doing that, for committing to the most seriousness. I do appreciate it. That's all we have for today, folks. If you got any questions, let me know in the comments. And if you have any better answers for our folks today, or you want to talk about serrations or anything else, drop that in the comments as well. And to get your hands on any of these items, check out the links in the description. Those will take you to KnifeCenter.com, where don't forget about our long-running Knife Rewards program, so you can earn some free money to spend on a future purchase. I'm David C. Anderson from the Knife Center. That's Thomas behind the camera. Maybe I should have saved the vampire question for like Halloween or something.
I'm realizing now that very often lawyers are called bloodsuckers, and you picked an executive knife.
Words of wisdom from Thomas. We're signing off, guys. See you next time.